You would have heard that banking in Jamaica is an all day activity. And today I want to talk about the worst to the best banks. And these are laid out in the order of how I have experienced banking in Jamaica. And I tell you, I started banking as a student. Back in the 80s, we had, or maybe it was 70s, oh my God. I started in primary school with a bank account. All of us had to get this little booklet where we were encouraged to save. So on a Monday, I think, you would be presented with your bank book. It was a little card that folded in two, and you would take your money over to the table, and the teacher would collect it and she would write in your book. Now, that was with a Workers' Bank. And I remember vividly when I started high school in 1984, I took my bank card to Workers' Bank, which was right there on Tower Street, because I had to walk past it each day to go get my bus after leaving my bus from Waterford. I had to walk up the street, up Orange Street, turn onto Tower Street, and then go up King Street. So I got a brilliant idea. Why not take my bank book, go to the bank, and get a formal account established for me? You see, I was a smart, creative child, and I have blossomed into a smart, creative adult. Anyway, enough of that. So I did that, and I remember walking into Workers' Bank, and it all looked big and ginormous, and everything was just clean and pretty, and the staff was just so beautifully adorned in their uniforms. It was like standing in the middle of the most beautiful place and just spinning and looking around and taking it all in. And then, of course, having taken my Workers' Bank card in, and that was the intention, that once you left primary school, you would open up a proper savings account and you would start on a full saving journey. So if you think about that system way back then, late 70s, early 80s, there was a push to establish a life of savings for youngsters. And so that was my entryway into the world of banking. They told us you have to save for a rainy day. Don't spend everything. Don't eat all your money. Put away something. And it's funny when you inculcate those traits in children because they stay with you. To begin speaking about the worst to the best banks in Jamaica, you would want to start with the ease of opening an account. And can I tell you, as I look back from that time in primary school with our Workers' Bank account to when I reflect on the process for opening an account for my then son to now, my then son, yes, not my then son, he is still my son, my young son, to know as an adult, should he or myself try to open an account, it's like giving birth to triplets. The things that they want, it's it's like more than trying to sign up for a college scholarship. My best advice, if I were to give one, is to open an account for your child, your grandchild, your ward before adulthood. Because the moment this person hits age 16 or even adulthood 18, the demands, the requirements are of such that it is a total turn off. From the job letter to the purpose for opening the account to how much you plan to deposit weekly, monthly, to the source of income. And let us not even start speaking about the minimum balance, because if you go below this minimum balance, you're going to be charged. You're going to be fined. Don't you dare think that you can open this account with the minimum amount either and then remove it after the account has been opened. Because if you do so, that fine will be levied against you and you will have your account going into a negative state, and you might be fined for that too. So it just gets progressively worse. So let's get to the meat of this video, because I will not have you hanging out for too long. Hands down, my experience is that NCB, the National Commercial Bank of Jamaica, is the worst bank in Jamaica. They are so bad that if I were to begin sharing my experiences, y'all would probably just start crying for me. But just for a little bit of context, do not think that I became an NCB customer 2 days ago, and because they told me I could not sit in their posh chair and have the non-existent coffee, I got upset and just shook my head, wheeled my tail, walked out. Nothing could be further than the truth. My account with NCB was opened at the Harbour Street branch in 1990. Now, there are so many people that I know and do business with who were not even alive in 1990. They were not even a thought on their parents' radar. But if that was not bad enough, I carried that account with me everywhere I went. So when I moved to work in Negril, I transferred it to the Negril branch. When I moved to now live and work in the Ocherius area, I did that all again. But my experiences day after day, year after year, has proven without a shadow of a doubt that NCB is the worst possible financial institution in Jamaica. Now, if you want to hear details of my experience, just comment below. I'll be more than happy to oblige. But only if you commit to have your favorite brew and something crunchy to nibble on, because that story time is going to be one that requires absolute attention. Following close on the heels of NCB is Scotiabank. Scotiabank Jamaica Limited, a subsidiary of Scotia Canada, has proven time and time again to be a financial institution of inconsistencies. Today they're up, tomorrow they're down. Today they make you feel like a valued customer, tomorrow you're wondering, oh, what the heck. And my experience has been with Scotiabank that their best product and the best service that I have continuously experienced or received is from Scotia Mint. That is their insurance arm. Outside of that, can't be overly excited about anything that is offered through Scotiabank. And I will go further to say my Scotiabank experience has also extended to Scotia Canada, where I opened my first account as a landed immigrant in Canada. And the experience was night and day. I literally would have gone into Scotiabank, any Scotiabank in Canada, just because of the feel goodness that you get. And it's interesting too, because Scotia Canada is connected in a live railway to Scotia Jamaica. But Scotia Jamaica is so distant from Scotia Canada, they will establish the fact that they are two separate entities. That in itself has its own story time. So you know what to do if you want to hear that story. Now, for me, the Grace Kennedy group, they made an entryway into banking several years ago. And the first global branch in my area was one where I presented myself to have an account. And I tell you this, to today's date, and this is more than 10 years, I'm sure, since First Global has opened their branch, I'm yet to have opened that account. The attempt, even as they opened their first branch, was extremely frustrating. I attempted to open a business banking account, and armed with the main requirements, your TCC, your registration documents, list of directors, etc., and of course the amount to open the account. The account was just never opened. Still can't quite figure out whether they're coming or going. Yes, when you step in, it's nice and posh and it looks quite comfortable, but they don't seem to get themselves out of the blocks the way their advertising would suggest. So, yeah, First Global, certainly not ready for business in my book. Now, when we talk about CIBC, one would think that also as a Canadian bank and so very strong in the financial services industry, that would have been one of the top banks in Jamaica. And you would have also thought that considering that back in the early 1980s, when we were first allowed the opportunity to have foreign currency accounts, that I would still have an account at CIBC, because that was the branch on King Street, right across from Oceana Hotel where I worked, that I walked over and opened my first foreign currency account. But believe you me, I cannot recall what happened, but I can tell you that on a nice bright day, I had to walk in there and withdraw my foreign currency, my US dollars, and took them elsewhere because CIBC has just not been ready for business in my book. Now, Jamaica National Building Society, as it was known back then, touted its ability to provide home ownership in a timely and affordable manner. And that was never a path that I engaged them on. However, when I started my account at the Senance Bay branch, I figured, yay, this is going to be really, really a great place to save and build and grow. Needless to say, they pushed other products, and the one that I had greatest interest in was their small business loan facility. I tell you this, that was my entryway into learning something I'd rather unlearn. So, when in all instances of loan calculation, you're usually given a per annum loan percentage. Much to my shock and dismay, after being approved for my loan, I don't remember how much it was, could have been $20,000, which was quite a proper amount of money for a small business loan at the time. I was shocked to discover that my loan was calculated at whatever percentage per week, not for the or over the life of the loan. I do not want to lie because it was many years ago. But the shock of it was whether I chose to pay in larger amounts or not, it was not on the reducing balance. My weekly interest was calculated into my loan amount, and at the end of that repayment, I would have repaid that 20%, whether I did it quickly or not. You can understand from my tone that I was not impressed. And so my relationship with them started to go south. And it went even more south when they had this partner program where, just as in Jamaica, we would throw a partner with our friends or families and so on. They had a partner plan. But for some reason, I just never benefited from it the way it was supposed to. So, yeah, Jamaica National Building Society found its way in my bad books. They changed to Jamaica National Bank not long ago. However, when I tried to convert my building society account to the bank account, the paperwork that was given and the persons required to sign it and to validate me, it is probably still sitting somewhere in my to dump file, because I could not understand why, already being a customer, because I had chosen not to do business for a period of time, the switchover couldn't happen. Too much work. And so here I am, cannot really be honest about Jamaica National as a bank because I've not had the ability to experience them. But because the changeover was so difficult, they also have to join my worst bank list in Jamaica. Now, since we started with building societies, I think we can stay there for a minute longer. And Victoria Mutual Building Society comes in for honorary mention. You see, I worked at VMBS. I left the hotel industry briefly, went into VMBS banking and worked in their mortgage arrears department. Learned a lot. It was quite an interesting working experience. I had to toughen up. I had to become very strong. I had some supervisors there. Some you love to hate and some you hate to love. But my VMBS account has been one that has traveled with me as well. And that was where I chose to open my newly born son's first account. Because having learned the value of a building society, I knew that this was imperative for him. And I'm very happy that 20 how many years later, I have been able to get a solid thank you, Mom, from him, because having attained the age of mid 20s, he could say he has had an account for in excess of 20 years. Not a bad track record. So, how would I rate VMBS? VMBS has been decent. It's not in my worst banks book. It's in one of those straggling the fence. I could almost say it's a good bank. Yeah, I've had my little teething pains, but nothing to gripe over, nothing to bellyache over. As a matter of fact, there are some programs that they have that would come in for honorable mention. And of course, if you need to hear a little bit more about those and those experiences that I have had or assisted with, you know what to do. Just say the word, and I would be more than happy to oblige. Now, many persons would say JMB has been and still is one of the best banks in Jamaica. And I have had my own journey with JMB. As a matter of fact, we were happy to host the first survey group that spoke to would Otrius be a good location for JMB to have its branch. And that was at the turn of 2000. So you can imagine Y2K was coming around, and here on my veranda sat a group of persons specially selected and invited to listen to the presentation for this brokerage house to establish themselves in Ocherius. And for that, we were awarded with a personal brokerage account funded by JMB. And I still say thank you, JMB. When they opened their branch in Ocherius, I was able to transfer that account, and it's still going, sort of ish. Because when they transferred from being a merchant bank to a commercial bank, they were able to do that changeover without me jumping through 10 million hoops to get it set up. So kudos, JMB. They are trending highly towards the direction of best bank in Jamaica. However, I did have my experience trying to open an account in a JMB in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And if you want to hear me talk a little bit about that, just say the word. So this is where you would have the dun 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 dun, dun drum roll, best bank in Jamaica. As far as the services that I have received and the things I have been able to successfully complete. Not sure if you guessed it, but without hesitation, Sagicor Bank has been for me a very good place to do banking. That does not mean that on more than one occasion, and even recently, I have had to cuss because Sagicor just drives me crazy. But for all intents and purposes, for a workable, sensible, most of the time seamless operation, Sagicor has been that for me. And so we could talk a little bit more about some of the other banks. But in my book, I speak from personal experience. I know there are some lesser banks. I know there are some credit unions. I know there are even those microfinancing entities, but we're saying best to worst banks. So for me, there would be a little bit of a tussle between JMB and Sagicor. But in terms of usability, flexibility, accessibility, it is Sagicor Bank for me. So as I wrap up 2024 and I start doling out the prizes and giving the awards, ladies and gentlemen, please allow Sagicor to stand and take a bow, because in my book, Sagicor Jamaica Limited has proven to be the best bank in Jamaica. Either way, I look forward to engaging you in the comment section of this video, because as usual, you know Sherry has lots to say. Ciao for now.